everyone owned gold in 1933. Now no one does. It's such a very minute, as Rick has said, as we talked before, 1/2 of 1% of the entire matrix of financial assets in this country is attributed to gold. That's nothing.
Great. Yeah, we've had some very cogent questions submitted by clients who've purchased metals through us and have watched the show every week. And I was trying to summarize this one, but I thought, you know what, it's so well written, I'm just going to read it in its entirety. We've got another one after this, and we have some questions for you right before the special. Bruce and Cheryl ask, as the world and its economies are hurtling towards meltdown and governments are salivating at the chance to reset the financial system with central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, so that they can gain complete control over their citizens, how does gold fit into that scenario? Does it become an underground source of currency for barter? Would the governments who would like to monitor/tax every transaction allow gold to be used in any large transaction, let alone convert gold into a CBDC currency? Do you see them outlawing gold as Roosevelt did in the 1930s? Would it truly then become a relic?
So the last question first, I don't think they'll outlaw gold. I've said this for a very long time. If you have any intention of maintaining the world reserve currency or even on that level, if someone were to rise to challenge, if you have any intentions of being the center of free trade in the world, if you can even call markets freely traded any longer, but if you have the intentions or the aspirations of maintaining any sense of normalcy in the financial markets, the last thing that our government could do would be to activate eminent domain and take physical gold from the populace, which is really the pimple on the elephant's rear end. In 1933, everyone owned gold. And the picture behind me over my shoulder here, as we've shown before, that one up there of Roosevelt, that's him, the executive order, that's a $10 gold coin and a $10 currency certificate, along with the executive order for him taking everyone's gold in 1933. Everyone owned gold in 1933. Now no one does. It's such a very minute, as Rick has said, as we talked before, 1/2 of 1% of the entire matrix of financial assets in this country is attributed to gold. That's nothing. And so it wouldn't be worth the backlash. It would be the unintended consequences of confiscating gold, I think, would be extraordinary when countries like China and Russia are telling their citizens to own it and accumulate it. Instead, I think as I've mentioned before, what they will do is they will nationalize the ETFs like GLD and SLV. And we can debate all day long about the veracity of the metal held in GLD and SLV and is it all there? Has it been encumbered or what? I do believe there's a good deal of metal in both. I mean, SLV is if we hold them true to what they're saying, they're like the second largest stockpile of silver in the world, and GLD fourth or fifth largest stockpile of gold. SLV is held by, or the administrator is JP Morgan. I mean, the fox guarding the hen house. And it is HSBC Bank that is the administrator of GLD. Again, another fox. They can come in on a Friday night, nationalize those two accounts, not do anything about taking physical metal from people. The prospectus doesn't allow the average person to take possession of the metal anyway, so they could pay everyone what their share price was at the close of business Friday and tell them, hey, you can still buy physical metal. We're just closing these accounts. And they would be sitting on a massive stockpile of gold and silver without violating civil liberties or breaking any laws. They can still look the world in the face and say, what? We didn't take from our citizens. We closed a couple of funds. The prospectus gives us the right to do it. I don't think they'll take gold and silver. I really don't. As far as converting to a CBD, a central bank digital currency, yeah, why not? I mean, you could argue the dollar is already a digital currency in one respect. I mean, take a poll of anyone under 30 years old, and if they got $50 in their wallet, I mean, it's 1 out of 100. If that, young kids don't pay for anything anymore with anything other than iPhone with Apple Pay or Google Pay or a credit card. Cash is starting to kind of wean its way out of the system anyway. But I think the whole idea would be to transition. If we look at the Chinese digital yuan as an example, they rolled it out parallel with their renminbi, with their paper currency. And so it's been a parallel deal where it's gaining more and more and more acceptance to the point where there's somewhere near 12 billion in transactions already on the digital yuan, but they haven't outlawed cash yet. And so it'll be in my opinion, they want to transition to the central bank digital currency. So selling your gold and transitioning into a central bank digital currency will be something that they want. And so will it be an underground currency? I don't think so. I mean, physical gold always gives you privacy, and you could argue that a central bank digital currency removes all the privacy. These what if questions are always impossible to answer, but what I will simply say is you do the best you can. You know the old adage, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. I don't see any other way to prepare for the worst than to have physical metal. And if it ever were called in, it would suck. But the eminent domain says they have to pay you a fair price. Roosevelt confiscated gold at just over $20 an ounce and then revalued it to 35 or devalued the dollar by 40%. Could that happen? Yeah. I mean, do you want to be a fugitive or not a fugitive, a criminal in a black market? That's your option if you do in that environment. But you'll have options when others don't have any. The bottom line is that I don't think converting it into a CBDC or physical gold being confiscated is primary concerns right now. Quite to the contrary, I think it is a life raft in a world of uncertainty. And again, we hope for the best and hope that we don't see government impose these type of fascist, decrees where we can keep our metal. And again, if Rick is right, Rick Rule, us 1/2 of 1%ers will be not worth the backlash globally of confiscating physical gold for the tiny little amount that they would get, which doesn't even amount to a couple hours of money printing when the rest of the world, including communist countries, are actually promoting it and telling their clients to own it, or their citizens, excuse me.
You mentioned supply chain fracturing. You mentioned retailers not being able to deliver things that they've never had trouble delivering before. We've seen also a degradation in service quality in the delivery of U.S. Postal Service, for example, among others. You've warned us about this. You said when inflation hits, if they try to hold costs, we're going to see service quality go down. It's affecting our clients because those who prefer to go really old school and mail paper checks on their purchases, we have 5 forms of payment that we accept, and paper checks is only one of those 5 methods. But for those who really, really want to mail a paper check, we've said they've got to use priority mail, but the U.S. Postal Service doesn't guarantee a delivery timeline on priority mail. They have a 2 to 3 business day target. They say it's their goal, but we've had increasing occurrences where things are taking 10 to 14 days to show up through priority mail. So what's our ability to take paper checks going forward? What do clients need to be aware of that may be changing in that regard?
Yeah, we just want people to send it by overnight mail or second day mail at the latest. You've seen a tremendous issue since 2020 with all of the delivery mechanisms, with UPS and FedEx leaving packages sometimes without signature, but yet they're supposed to get that signature. We pay for that signature. In essence, they're lying and saying that they saw Dunnigan and Dunnigan signed for it, yet Dunnigan says, I just came home, it's sitting on my doorstep. That never happened prior to COVID. Now it happens 5% of the time, and that's 5% way too much. Or in this case, the post office. You pay for express mail, and you and I were talking offline earlier about 10 days later, we still don't have a check from one of your clients who sent it express mail, and they track it.
Priority mail, yeah, they say they expect approximately 2 to 3 business days.
Priority. And it still says it's in transit. Right. So I think the distancing protocols that have been put into place in the post office pretty much mandate if you want to use a paper check, which is fine, we would really ask that it be sent by priority overnight or 2-day at the latest mail so that we are able to process it and get the package out to the client quicker. I know that you sent me one more question. I think you may have forgotten, and it was from George Henson. It says, ask Andy if the Fed balance sheet would be negative still after valuing the number one asset of the gold certificates from 4160 to the current 1826 per ounce. I did a little back of the envelope math, and I hope I don't expose myself as being dumb. But when I looked at the number of ounces that we supposedly have, like 8,300 metric tons, I did the math, and it came out to not even $550 billion. So when you talk about the Fed balance sheet in terms of it being negative, no, it wouldn't be completely negative, but the Fed isn't the owner of that gold. That's supposedly belongs to the United States, to the Treasury. And so, but factored against our debt of 30 trillion, forget about the unfunded liabilities, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, government, military pensions that push it way over 100 plus trillion. All the gold that we supposedly have isn't even half a trillion, or just over half a trillion, rather. So if they ever were going to try and use gold to peg to a new system here in the West, they'd have to raise gold substantially in terms of its value in order to wipe out the debt. It would have to go up a minimum of 60 times from where it is right now. That's why you get people that say gold is going to go to astronomical levels and never come back down, because it would be pegged to a new system. And in order to peg it to a new system, the price has to move much higher. But hey, maybe that's why gold's tier one, the only other tier one reserve asset in the world, because maybe that's what the future plans are. And I quite frankly think that is what the plans are. So anyways, to Mr. Henson, that's the best I can tell you, other than to say the Fed is not the one who owns the gold, so it wouldn't have anything to do with their balance sheet.